Can you hear me okay? Okay, so I'd like to welcome you to When Places Speak Athens+Piraeus. I'm Tasoulla Hadjiyanni. I'm a faculty member in interior design at the University of Minnesota. And When Places Speak Athens+Piraeus is the sixth exhibit in the series. It's a global photography exhibit that tries to shed light on how places intersect with trafficking. So I'm going to tell you a little bit more about how that got started. But first, because we don't know who is in the audience, we wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of the United Nations definition of sex trafficking. And as you can see here, the definition is the commercial sex act is induced by force, fraud, or coercion, or in which the person induced to perform such an act has not attained 18 years of age. So it's a very specific definition, and it's very hard to figure out exactly who is trafficked and who is not, and that's why it is a little bit fraught with tension in terms of what is trafficking. But we do know that over 27 million people a year are trafficked globally. And of course, that's true everywhere, so don't think that it's only in Greece, it's everywhere, all right? So I wanted to also share a poem by Giorgos Koletsos, who is driving all of my work. And this poem actually comes from his poem, The Last Stop, or Τελευταίος Σταθμός, and it actually says that the thought of the refugee, the thought of the captive, the thought of the person who ended up for sale, try to change it, you can't. So all of my work I called When You Can't. So being cognizant that what we are doing, because my work is with refugees and then survivors of trafficking, we know from the beginning that it's a difficult journey. It's a very difficult work that we're trying to do. So Giorgos Koletsos, I think, captures that pain that comes from being a refugee and also from being a person that ended up for sale. So when I started this work about 13 years ago, not that many people were understanding the connection between design and trafficking. Actually, I was told, don't you even go that way. But when I heard that the average age of a child being trafficked in the United States was 13, I had this visceral reaction, and I thought, that cannot be happening, because a person can be sold over and over, unlike drugs, for example. The average time a person is sold, I'm talking about the US, where we have more kind of concise data, is 5 average times a day. All right, so that just got me really sick, and I said I have to do something about it, and that's how I started this line of research that is actually working around that, which is called the placeness of trafficking. So the placeness of trafficking pretty much says that we as designers can be part of the efforts to put an end to modern day slavery. So you can see that trafficking is in the middle, so it has to do with awareness, prevention, and healing, but trafficking happens in places, like 90% of our life happens in places. It happens everywhere, from truck stops to schools, to homes, to airports, right? So that's where we come in as designers, and then we can join law enforcement, educators, policymakers, funders, and I know many of you here are with anti-trafficking organizations, and the goal is that all of us together can raise awareness and prevention and healing. So I wanted to also give you some resources so that you know after you leave from here where to go if you need information, more information. So I have 4 lines of research right now on design and trafficking. So as you can see, we have When Places Speak, and then we also have a study on design characteristics that are conducive to trafficking. All right, like for example, here you can see the low-level windows on a motel. They are perfect for traffickers because they take them out and purchasers can enter without being seen or without having to walk through the lobby. So we have a line of research on that. We also have a line of research on ads, online ads, placed to attract customers. And we also have a research on design guidelines for transition housing, which like Damaris can hopefully, or other organizations can find useful, because they go from the bathroom to the bedrooms to everywhere. And all of that is online. And I'll share the website in a second so you can see. So When Places Speak, like I said, is the 6th in a series. This one here, the goal we realized is that we need to raise awareness among the general public. And by writing journal articles, nobody reads them. So we thought that having an exhibit on places caught in trafficking is going to give another lens through which to see the same problem, which is the problem of trafficking. So it's not like we don't want to talk about survival stories, but we want the places that are also abused because they were not designed, they were not built for modern day slavery, right? They are also abused to share their own story. So that's the goal. And we're now working on When Places Speak New York is going to open in March 2024. So stay tuned for that. And here are some of the images from the other exhibits. You can see North Dakota, Los Angeles, Cebu City, Philippines, and Minneapolis. And all of that is online. You can go to designagainsttrafficking.com and you can find all of that information in addition to information on anti-trafficking from around the world, and in addition to other design disciplines working for against trafficking, apparel, product design, graphic design, so all forms of design. Okay, so today we have a very distinguished panel, and we're going to learn more about anti-trafficking efforts and what is happening here in Greece. And that's why we are recording the session, so that we can share these lessons that we learned today with others. So I'm going to walk you through our guest speakers today. So we're going to start with Theodora Gianni, who comes from Ethnico, Cέντρο, Κοινωνικής, Αλληλεγγύης, so ΕΚΚΑ. And then we have Diana Spathi, who comes from Nea Zoi. Then we have Giorgos Koletsos, who was our journalist, who helped us with When Places Speak, Athens+Piraeus. And then we have Eva Katsaiti, who is from the University of West Attica. And Petros Toufexis is our photographer. And Eva-Lena comes from Threads of Hope. So we're going to start with Theodora. Do you need? Okay, yeah.
Thank you for the invitation. I really enjoy being here between artists and people who are so much interested in what we're trying to do. I represent a state organization. We are responsible for the operation of the Greek referral mechanism for the protection of human trafficking victims here in Greece. So what an NRM is, as we call it, is a coordinating mechanism for bringing together state and civil society organizations to promote an intersectoral approach, because this is what is important in order to combat human trafficking, and trying to keep the victims and their rights at the center. So here in Greece also, I think, as Tasoulla already mentioned, is recognized as a crime, but it is also linked with other disputed issues like gender-based violence, violation of human rights, migration policies, grey economy, and the labor market dynamics. So this is what keeps this crime still hidden, and this is why we cannot say actually that we have the real picture of the situation. But what we are trying to do in the NRM is to have to gather data from all relevant actors so that we can give reliable information on the victims that are detected and protected in our country. The majority of about 400 victims that were reported last year in the NRM are foreign nationals, but they are not only foreign, they are also native citizens who were trafficked and exploited either in their country of origin, which was mainly African countries, or during their journey to Europe, and mainly in Turkey. Their exploitation can be of many forms, and in many cases, there is more than one form in each case. We have, of course, sexual exploitation, exploitation of labor, forced begging or removal of organs, forced criminal activities, such as pickpocketing or drugs trade. And to be more specific, 86% of human trafficking victims reported are women, and 80% of those women were sexually exploited. Trafficking victims are entitled here in Greece to protection services as accommodation, medical and legal support, compensation, and a residence permit under certain preconditions. They are always entitled to psychology support during penal procedures if they are willing to cooperate with the authorities, but they are not obliged to do so. It is true that usually the most vulnerable people coming from poor families or no families at all, abusive environments, minority groups with little social skills are the easiest, but not the only, prey of traffickers who take advantage of their vulnerabilities. Their means of recruitment is often deception and promises for a better life, which are transformed into abusive and violent behavior when in exploitation. A very common modus operandi is the so-called lover boy tactic, one who promises marriage, family life to lonely, abused young women in need of care and appreciation, offers gifts, love, ending up in forcing them to prostitution as a proof of their commitment. You can imagine how difficult it is for professionals to build a trusting relationship with a victim after such a traumatizing experience of having been deceived by a person who trusted so deeply. Last but not least, the motive of criminals is the profit, and the profit is based on demand. As long as there is demand, there will be supply. This is why specific provisions exist in law, such as the criminalization of the knowing use of services, meaning the punishment of those who, even if they know that human trafficking is involved, they still buy or receive services provided by the victims. It is only recently that we all witnessed the arrest of clients of sexual services in the case of the 12-year-old girl from Kolonos, which we hope it is the beginning of the end of the culture of impunity for clients. Thank you very much.
Hello, my name is Diana. I am the director of Nea Zoi, which is an association that supports and restores individuals in prostitution. We primarily do this through what we call outreaches, which is weekly visits to the streets and the brothels, and we offer tea, coffee, and biscuits while we chat with them. Nea Zoi has been around for almost 30 years, and there is a lot that we could talk about on the subject of trafficking, but the main thing that I wanted to talk about is the reasons why, or at least one of the reasons why this is the second largest criminal group, let's say, trafficking in general. There are many reasons. One of those is the various myths that have been portrayed and people believe, either through media or through various other social information that's been passed down. So, for example, there's 11 main myths. So it involves kidnapping. If you're in that environment, it's because you like it. Only strangers can be traffickers or groomers. Only the male victims that are victims are gay. Only women are victims. Only men are traffickers or groomers. It only happens in illegal and underground activities. You can easily escape once you're in it. It only happens in other mostly underdeveloped countries, so that's something that never happens in my country. All traffickers and groomers do it because they want to, and you have to cross the border in order to do that. So when someone has that in their minds, that these myths are actually true, there's often the question raised, why am I, how to put this? Why should I care? How does this involve me in any way? Especially when you think that doesn't happen in my country, or it happens in underdeveloped countries. Or the reason why, as Theodora mentioned, the reasons why someone becomes trafficked is because of poverty. It is one of the reasons, it's not the main reason. So unpacking these myths, it is a global industry. As again Theodora said, traffickers use force, fraud, coercion, manipulation, or even blackmail. It can include but does not require movement, so it can happen in your own country. You don't have to cross the borders. And it can happen in various places. So it's not just the streets or the brothels that someone would end up working, but it's massage parlors, studios, strip clubs, hotels, through the internet with escorts and many more. And the last thing that I wanted to mention is another myth is the risk factors. We mentioned before that poverty is one of them, but actually when a research was done and a poll happened, the low economic status or not living at home and extreme poverty was actually two of the lowest reasons. And kidnapping, which is something that's also been, an image that's been addressed as something that's happening, mainly through films, it's so low that it's almost like non-measurable as a amount. So the first reason for someone being trafficked is that they either lack confidence or they have too much. And that's mostly true for teenagers. The second, after that, is that it happens in a certain age or gender, like we mentioned before, female, or again, teenagers or younger, like 20s. And then the third one would be problems at school or at home. So something that would force someone to seek help in any way. In the middle would be a history of abuse or feeling inadequately loved, all things that the trafficker or the groomer uses in order to gain their trust. And then the fifth one would be having no friends or social support. If that's something that already happens, it's helpful for the groomer because there's no one that can realize that this is something that's happening to this person. If they do have a strong family environment or friends, that's something that they use to draw them away so that they don't have someone to search for them, to look into, realize that there's something going wrong. So I wanted to mention all these things just to start raising questions in your mind as to why is this a big issue? Why does it affect all of us and not specific people? And why is this such a social issue to the point of it's not just specifically about the sex trafficking or the trafficking or someone being forced to do something, but socially, if you look in the deeper questions and issues, why is this really happening and what can we do to fight this to the point where it doesn't exist anymore?
Hello, I'm the journalist who made the investigation. This exhibition is based on, it's not a photo reportage, but it's based on some real facts. We did a research to find out where sex trafficking in Athens and Piraeus has been took place. I found some places, and next the photographer Petros did his artwork. It was a difficult research. I had to visit some quite dangerous places, find out some information that are not well known. Thanks God there were some people from organizations like Nea Zoi, like Miss Gianni, and the people who are here in the panel who helped us and gave us their knowledge about the incidents and some useful information. I can say that there were many people who refused to help. I don't know why. They didn't seem to have a profit from not saying us some details or some information. I thought it would be useful. They pretended that everything was okay in Athens, in Greece. Nobody believes that. Now, about the police, I think they do a great job in Greece. They helped us a lot. They told us specific what is going on in Athens. And I think the photographer, he did not do a photo reportage. This is art. But I hope I helped him, and I hope I had a small contribution in a way, yes, to help, a small help from me for that situation. This is important, to help people and to inform people that they can, so that they can help others. I don't want to say too much. I think we will have a discussion later. You can ask me anything you want. So,
You can hear me okay, yeah? Okay. Okay. I'm Eva Katsaiti from the University of West Attica, and I'm just wondering why I'm in this panel. But I guess I'm here to speak about photography, the role of photography, of how photography can be used in a project like this. And I was thinking hard about what can we do with photography, and I was thinking that photography, especially photography that is printed and on the wall, can be revisited. So when we see images like that, we can go back to them, and sometimes we can remember images like that. And this is a project about space, and spaces of isolation, spaces that people have suffered in. So the one aspect is that the people that we have not experienced trafficking, we have access to an experience that is recorded in a space that we have not accessed before. And this is a very interesting situation. There is this tradition of documentary that is supposed to show us what other people have experienced, what other people's experience is. But this is not the case, because we can only imagine. The other thing of photography is that sometimes photography, through its silence, it can be used for witnessing. So these are not pictures made from survivors of trafficking, but they are about this issue. And maybe some people that have been trafficked can maybe narrate their stories through them. And so these pictures can be witnessing pictures as well. Going back to that photography question is this documentary? Can this be true? Is this just narration? Is this just a story about trafficking and all these questions that I feel very inadequate to actually answer. But I find this setting and this, it all comes back to what do we want to do with these pictures. And I think what we want to do is to be together, because survivors have been alone. And this is a kind of peculiar witnessing and being together with the people that have suffered somehow, to bring them in the community and to be with them in the community, kind of thing. Thank you.
Επιτρέψτε μου να μιλήσω στα ελληνικά εγώ, θα είμαι ο πρώτος. Allow me to express myself in Greek. Θυμάμαι την πρώτη φορά που συναντήθηκαμε σε ένα Tasoulla στο Λος Άντζελες και μου πρότεινες να δουλέψω πάνω στην περιοχή του Λος Άντζελες και είχαμε πει πόσο ωραίο θα ήταν να γίνει στην Αθήνα, και πιο πολύ είμαι ικανοποιημένος γιατί αυτή η σκέψη έγινε πράξη. Για μένα είναι πολύ σημαντικό πράγματα που σκεφτόμαστε και θέλουμε να γίνουν, να ακολουθείτε από μια πράξη. Τώρα, όσον αφορά το φωτογραφικό κομμάτι, ήταν αρκετά δύσκολο, γιατί δεν φωτογράφησα ανθρώπους, έπρεπε να φωτογραφίσω τα μέρη και να πω κάτι. Κάτι που μου έχει μείνει, αν κάποιος με ρώταγε, είναι μια φωτογραφία στο τέλος, αν την έχετε δει, που είναι κάτι θρανία σχολικά, έτσι, κατακόκκινα, και η ιστορία είναι ότι, μπορούμε να την πούμε έτσι, στο Γέρακα είναι αυτό το σχολείο, κάποια στιγμή, τέλος πάντων, κάποιος είχε αγοράσει ένα κοριτσάκι από τη μάνα. Προσπάθησε να το αποπλανήσει και να το απαγάγει, τέλος πάντων. Και όταν πήγα, μίλησα με τη διευθύντρια και τη ρώτησα ποια ήταν η τάξη. Ήταν 7:30 ώρα το πρωί και έπεφτε ο ήλιος έτσι πλάγια. Και μου έδειξε τη μοναδική τάξη που όταν μπήκα ήταν κατακόκκινα. Λόγω είχε τις κουρτίνες και τέλος πάντων ήταν αυτό αρκετά έτσι συμβολικό και χαρακτηριστικό για όλο αυτό το θέμα με το trafficking. Δεν ξέρω τι άλλο να πω. Εντάξει, και αυτό που θέλω να πω ίσως είναι ότι σκεφτόμουν καθ' όλη τη διάρκεια, το μόνο που μπορούσα να κάνω εγώ είναι να δω τα μέρη που σίγουρα τα έχει δει ένα θύμα. Να τα δω και να σκεφτώ. Για μένα ήταν και μια, αν θέλετε έτσι, προσωπική δουλειά με τον εαυτό μου, να δω και σε μένα τι γίνεται, πώς έβλεπα εγώ τα πράγματα, πριν ασχοληθώ με αυτό το θέμα, πριν ενημερωθώ, πριν καν ξέρω. Αυτό. Δεν ξέρω δηλαδή αν με αυτή την έκθεση θα σώσουμε κάποιον άνθρωπο, θα γίνει κάτι τέτοιο. Το πιο σημαντικό πράγμα που έγινε ήταν σε μένα και πώς σκέφτομαι εγώ και βλέπω κάποια πράγματα. Αυτά θέλω να ευχαριστήσω όλους όσοι συμμετείχαν, εσάς που ήρθατε. Και ο στόχος είναι, εντάξει, όλοι εμείς, ας πούμε, συμφωνούμε και όλοι ξέρουμε τι γίνεται. Το θέμα είναι να βγει παρά έξω όλο αυτό. Please forgive me that I said everything in Greek. Whoever is interested, I can talk with him in person. Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Eva-Lena Hellmark, and I come from Threads of Hope. Threads of Hope is a small non-profit business that work with survivors of trafficking, and mainly those who have ended up in prostitution. A few months ago, I spoke to one of the people who were working with us, and she had been in prostitution for several years on the streets of Athens. And I asked her, if a person wants to leave, what is the biggest thing she needs? How can we best help her? And she said like this, give her something to do. And then she explained, and she said that, you know, when you try to leave, and maybe even when you leave, if you just go and sit at home, you keep on thinking about what you've experienced, all the fearful things you have been through, everything, and it just goes on and on and on in your head. And she said, you may as well be back on the streets. And she said, it's one thing to leave the street, it's another thing to get the street to leave you. And that really got me thinking that even we know and understand that to actually leave that situation where you've been forced into something, somebody is controlling you, to leave that, it's a scary thing, it could even be dangerous. But what happens after you've been able to exit may sometimes be even as difficult. And recent research actually shows that only 1% of those who try to leave prostitution manages to leave permanently. 99% go back, and 80% of those who do say it was because they could not find a job. This is the reason why Threads started, to be able to offer job opportunities and some skill training for people who want to leave, and to help them to build a new foundation into their lives. I think when you are trafficked, you could say that your life is actually stolen from you, because actually everything that you are, that is familiar to you, that you know, is taken away from you. You lose your contact with your family, with your home. Maybe you have to leave your own country. You come to a country you don't know the language, you don't have any friends there. You lose control over everything basically in your life. It's not there. It's somebody else who sees you as their property, and you have to do what they ask you to do. And I think some of the things I've noticed when I have met people like this is that a very clear thing that they find so difficult is that they leave control over their own lives, in the sense that they cannot decide about anything. Somebody else decides where you stay, when you get up, when you can sleep, what you eat, what you do with your money you earn. They decide everything. So you lose that control. But you also, of course, lose the picture you have of yourself, your own self-confidence, your self-image, because you're told every day, so many times, you're stupid, you're worthless, you cannot do anything, you can never survive without me, you can do nothing without me. And of course, hearing this day out and day in for years, you start believing it. I cannot do these things. I cannot survive without this person who controls my life. And of course, you lose your dreams. The reason maybe why you even set out on a journey to go to a different country was because you wanted a better life. You had dreams, but it's taken away from you. You have nothing. The only thing, your only goal in life is, I need to earn that money they have told me I need to earn today, and I need to survive. Because it's dangerous out there. You don't know if you actually will survive the day. So basically, all of these things are taken away from you. And I think what we have noticed at Threads of Hope, when they come to us, of course, a big reason for us even to exist is to help them find, to learn a new skill and to get a job so they can survive, even just to have the money they need to survive. But it's interesting to see what happens when they are moved out of that old situation, when they come into a safe place. What happens? When they start to see that I work at the place where I have chosen, I want to be there. I work with people I like, that I feel fine with. And at the end of the month, I get my salary. And I decide what to do with that money. I can pay my rent, I can feed my children, I have control over that. And to just start to see how they kind of relax and are starting to think about other things in their lives. Of course, also learning a skill, you start to realize, I am not so stupid. I can learn something new. I can actually become good at something. People will say that what I made is really nice. And slowly, slowly, that sense of value, of worth, is coming back into your life. And of course, you realize there is, or there may be, a nice future for me ahead of me. You know, that all that was bad may not have to define me for the rest of my life. And I think another thing that is also really taken away from you is your ability to trust people. I think somebody else mentioned that before, that because everyone that you thought were safe, everyone that you should have been able to trust, they betrayed you. Maybe your family did, maybe your friends did. The people that said they will help you to find another job, they were the ones that actually exploited you and misused you. Trust is a hard thing. And just speaking then about places, and our place, the workplace that we want to create, it's not only to create a place where they can work and learn and earn their money, it's a place to heal. And I think this has become more and more obvious to us who work with these women. They are strong women. They have survived things I think most of us would not even survive. I mean, it's so horrible, the things they have experienced. But to see that being in a place that is safe, a place where they are accepted, where they can trust people, that starts to bring something else into their lives. How they slowly, slowly can start to heal up again, to see the pieces of the puzzle being put back together. And I would say that that is the most beautiful thing, really, to see how a person who is so broken when you first see them, who is so destroyed in so many ways, how they can start to see their lives being put up and be built up together again. That is quite amazing and quite wonderful.
Thank you so much, everyone. I also want to acknowledge that we have the Damaris group here, and they are also represented in the exhibit. I don't know if you want to say a few words, you know, just so that people can hear about Damaris too, and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you very much for this welcoming evening. We are Community House Damaris, a safe house and a recovery program here in Athens, Greece. Damaris House was established in 2016. And our day program has beneficiaries from around the world. Mainly now we have from Africa, but here I saw in the exhibition like a map with yellow faces. These faces represent all the countries from which our beneficiaries come from. So we have mainly from Africa, from Middle East, but also from Dominican Republic and other places. We empower these women to again their lives and to be in charge of their lives, to become independent. And something that I didn't mention is that we are a program both for the women and their children. So in our safe houses, we have these young women, these young mothers, and also other women in pregnant women that during their staying with us, they have their babies, and they also have the chance to recover, to be trained, to learn something to do. like a vocational training, let's say, and then we have a transitional housing program also, so that they can continue a little by little to become more independent. And our final goal is to become totally independent and live with their children, their lives. Yeah.
So we have time for questions. We wanted this to be more like a dialogue so that you can share experiences or ask questions of the panelists. Anyone? Or thoughts or reactions to what you heard? Ακούγεσαι. Περίμενα να δούμε για να το πιάνει και το...
Δεν είχα σκοπό να πω κάτι, αλλά όλο αυτό που κάνουμε σήμερα εδώ είναι κάτι όχι σπουδαίο, είναι ιδανικό, είναι κάτι παραπάνω από ιδανικό. Και πόσο εμείς οι άνθρωποι που βρισκόμαστε εδώ δεν έχουμε έρθει τυχαία, έχουμε μια ευαισθητοποίηση πάνω σε αυτό το θέμα και θέλουμε πραγματικά με την καρδιά μας να βοηθήσουμε κάποιους ανθρώπους. Εμείς, σαν δάμαρεις, πρώτα απ' όλα καταθέτουμε την καρδιά μας, πρώτα απ' όλα γινόμαστε η οικογένεια και το σπίτι που θα αγκαλιάσει αυτές τις κοπέλες. Όταν έρχονται σε εμάς, ήρθε μια φίλη μου να κάνει μετάφραση και μου λέει «Τι είναι εδώ, γιατί δεν μπορώ να δω το πίσω και βλέπω το μπροστά». Οι κοπέλες αυτές πολύ σύντομα γίνονται φίλες μας, πάμε έξω για καφέ, πάμε εκδρομές, πάνε εδώ με την Τίνα σε ξενοδοχείο διακοπές το καλοκαίρι. Έχουν όμως ένστικτο και θεραπεύονται με την αγάπη. Μπορεί να έχεις ένα πάρα πολύ καλό πρόγραμμα. Αν δεν νιώσουν ότι τις αγαπάς, δεν ανοίγονται, δεν αφήνονται. Η Ντίνα εδώ, που είναι και η ιδρύτρια και η διευθύντρια του οργανισμού, θα ήταν πολύ ωραίο να έχει άπειρες ώρες να σας πει το τι έχει ακούσει στα αυτιά της. Τα οποία όλα αυτά στην Ντίνα είναι οικία, είναι καλά, τα δέχεται σαν καλό και αυτές ανοίγονται ακόμα περισσότερο. Και έχω συγκινηθεί ιδιαίτερα με αυτή την κίνηση με τη φωτογραφία. Λέμε συνήθως μια φωτογραφία είναι 1000 λέξεις. Και κοιτούσα τώρα τις φωτογραφίες και έλεγα όχι, δεν είναι 1000 λέξεις. Είναι μια αποκάλυψη. Είναι η αποκάλυψη μιας μεγάλης αλήθειας. Είδα σημεία που συχνάζουν και βρίσκονται τα θύματα εκεί. Και σκέφτηκα, δεν είναι μόνο αυτά τα σημεία που τα θύματα βρίσκονται εκεί. Θα μπορούσαν οι φωτογράφοι να βάλουν και άλλες εικόνες μέσα. Αλλά δεν πρόλαβα να το σκεφτώ και είδα το σχολείο με τα αθρανία και λέω, δεν είναι μόνο στο δρόμο, δεν είναι μόνο στην Ομόνια ή στην πλατεία Κουμουνδούρου. Θα μπορούσες να βάλεις και μια ωραία οικογένεια που ετοιμάζεται την Κυριακή το πρωί να πάει στην εκκλησία. Θα μπορούσαμε να συμπεριλάβουμε κι άλλα, γιατί είναι ανάμεσά μας και δεν είναι μόνο έξω. Είναι μέσα στα σπίτια μας σήμερα. Αυτό ήθελα να μοιραστώ από καρδιάς.
Anybody else has a reaction maybe to a picture that you saw that you're reacting to or thinking? Anyone wants to share? Θέλεις να πεις.
Είπατε δηλαδή... Για να ακούγομαι. Αυτό που είπατε είναι πολύ εύστοχο και νομίζω ότι είναι ένα από τα νοήματα της έκθεσης που κάναμε εδώ. Μπορεί πραγματικά να συμβεί οπουδήποτε. Είπατε εκκλησία, δηλαδή διάβασα και για περιστατικό, ενημερώθηκα που ακόμα και έξω από εκκλησία μπορεί να γίνει οπουδήποτε, δεν είναι μόνο τα κακόφημα μέρη. Πήγα και σε μέρη που μιας καλής αστικής περιοχής που δίπλα ήταν σχολεία, ξέρετε, σπίτια καλοπεριποιημένα, εύπορα, και όμως στο υπόγειο ενός τέτοιου σπιτιού υπήρχε περιστατικό και δεν το γνώριζαν ούτε οι γείτονες. Ήθελα να κάνω αυτή τη σημείωση, είναι πολύ σημαντικό. Γίνεται παντού και γίνεται πλέον και επειδή μιλάμε για τόπους, και στο διαδικτυακό τόπο. Είναι και αυτό ένα μεγάλο κομμάτι. Αυτό ήθελα μόνο ως επισήμανση, επειδή ήταν...
Ναι.
Νομίζω είπατε κάτι σημαντικό.
Ναι, σίγουρα. Άλλο reaction, θα ήταν πολύ ενδιαφέρον να ακούσουμε τα reaction σας στις φωτογραφίες. Αν έχει μια φωτογραφία που σας έκανε να σκεφτείτε ή να το δείτε κάτι διαφορετικό, κανένας? Yeah. Nothing in particular? Maybe the panelists can share additional thoughts then? Yeah, Eva?
I want to say that I really like that the pictures were not really descriptive. They were not really describing some action or some space specifically, so that a lot was implied, and we had to complete the pictures. I think that was the most important thing, because then by completing the pictures we had to kind of own them, and that is very shocking in a way. It's like a conspiracy between the photographer and the viewers. The pictures were they were not there to be understood very much, but they were like to be experienced and be completed by the viewers. And you sucked us in that way. You can,
that process of decision. So when places speak, usually the exhibit tries to cover what we call the different phases of trafficking. So there are phases, right? You don't just go from one to the other. So we want to make sure that we have places of recruitment, like where they find people. Then a lot of the times, people who are trafficked are moved around, because that is one of the ways by which they can be disoriented. So disorientation is extremely important. And that's why in many airports around the world, you're going to see signs warning you about trafficking, because they want people to recognize trafficking situations and report them. If you are aware, you will recognize signs and report them. So I am urging you here, if you know anybody at the Eleftherios Venizelos airport, they do not have signs for trafficking. And that's not very common. A lot of airports will have signs for trafficking to raise awareness, or to enable, many times it's in the bathrooms, to enable survivors to connect with somebody in the bathrooms, or find help in some way or another. In the US, we also have anti-trafficking signs in truck stops, for example. And now I can tell you that finally New York City is going to put anti-trafficking information or ways to get help in lactation rooms. I don't know how much that's going to help, but that's what they came up with just now. Okay, I mean, literally last month they came up with this idea. So, so there are many places that you can enable survivors to get help. So then we move, so we have places of transfer. We also have law enforcement offices many times feature. We also have homes, because in many times people are put inside homes and they are being held there against their will. Hotels are like, I think, the second primary place where services are being, sold. So hotels, it could be happening anywhere again. Parks, and then so places of exchange. But then we also don't want to say nothing is happening. So we have a lot of anti-trafficking organizations featured as well, because we want to show that there is a lot of help available. So raising awareness about that. We also may have, like, for example, now we're working, like I said, on New York, when places speak New York City. We also have the courthouse, because that's where policies are being made. Like we just heard that Greece just made it implications for the purchasers, right? So all of that, so the laws or the policies, the regulations, all of that we also want to capture in a When Places Speak exhibit, because that's where a lot of trials happen, in courthouses. So that's another important place that normally we may not be thinking about. And so we try to cover the different phases of it. And Greece is working hard, and I think that's another reason that we want to hopefully shed more light on the need for more policies. There's a lot of need for more policies, a lot of needs for more kind of regulation to meet the European and the global standards against anti-trafficking. And we also hope that we are going to have more resources being being transferred to organizations like the ones that we have exhibited here so that they can do the anti-trafficking work. And that's why on the Design Against Trafficking website, you can also see organizations being featured. That's another reason that we do that. Okay, so I also wanted to say that we put a lot of time thinking about labeling the pictures. Okay, pros and cons about, first of all, we never include addresses, ever. And we never include identification, like for example, this is this hotel, or this is this massage parlor. If there is anything that's identifiable, we actually crop it out, or we don't use that picture. Because our goal is not to say it's happening in this hotel, because it happens everywhere, right? So we just want people to realize this is a hotel, this is a massage parlor, this is a street, this is a parking spot, like that, okay? So the other thing we could do is we could say underneath, this is a place of recruitment, this is a place of healing. We chose not to do that, again, because we think that the pictures connect with the viewer in a different way once you see it from the lens of being trafficked or being a person that ended up for sale, like Seferi said. So that's the goal, that you put yourself in that picture and see how it feels, right? So that's what's happening there. Any other thoughts? Anybody wants to say? Or questions? Maybe we can hear about next steps, like or things that could be done from anybody or from the audience or the panel. Next steps or something else that could be done.
Μια πληροφορία, να το πω στα ελληνικά.
Στα αγγλικά καλύτερα.
Okay, I want to share with you an information. I will do that in English. I heard that in many cases, some of the victims suffer from so much from the pain that they automatically διαχωρίζω.
They differentiate.
Yes, their body turns, their soul turns different from the body in purpose to handle the too much pain. I think that this was for me a shocking information and an answer to the stereotype that wants the victim to be involved or to not trying to escape. Sometimes it's not, their soul doesn't allow to escape. I don't know if it is, if you can understand it. My English wasn't very good. Disassociation, yes, it's disassociation, it's called. I wanted to share with you that it was shocking for me.
Yeah, maybe we can hear from
Yes.
Diana and Eva and other people who work with survivors. Elaborate on that? You want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, I would say that that's for sure one thing that's happening. And I would add that it's also an answer to, for us anyway, to a statement or a question of there is a distinction between victims who have been trafficked and people who have worked in prostitution. Because the legal framework is such in Greece, as we all know, and socially as well, prostitution is accepted. That's also another of the myths, that the people who are working in prostitution, they're there because they want to be. Which is not true. And one of the things that the individuals end up doing in order to cope in situations like that, which is basically a trauma that they keep living every day, is what you said, the disassociation. Of course, you can add drugs and various other substances to that, but yeah.
Could you just specify the question to me?
It's more about survivors and their needs and how, what does it take for somebody to heal. right, in that way? Yes. What would it take because of the multiple issues that they may be facing?
I mean, I'm sure for every individual it's going to be very different depending on what you have experienced and the situation you're in. And I think that is one thing we need to just understand and respect, that every person is an individual and they need, of course, very different things. We find with the women who come to us that some of them, they don't want to talk at all about what has happened, or it can take a long time before they want to talk about it because it's still so painful. Other people, they just want to talk. Even just yesterday, I met with a woman who is applying to come to us, and she has recently left her situation, and it was extremely painful for her to talk about what she has experienced. So she cried a lot, and I told her, you don't have to tell me, you don't have to tell me. But she said, I need to tell you my story. I need to be able to have somebody listen. It was quite difficult because I didn't know how to finish the meeting with her because she was so upset. And so I asked her, well, maybe you have a friend you can speak to tonight, before you go to bed, so it doesn't upset you all night. And she said, I have no friends, she said. And even if I would have, I wouldn't like to speak to them because I'm afraid they would laugh at me. And I think this is something that even though they have been victimized, even though somebody else has forced them to do things, they still carry a big burden of shame and guilt. They think it's their own fault, or why did this happen to me? So it is, yeah. I'm sure there are a lot of things to say, but I think we just need to respect that different people have a different journey to get back.
From my experience, and correct me if I'm wrong, but in Greece you primarily deal with adults. Adults primarily in Damaris? Adults, and then in your experience, adults primarily. So in the US, like I said, the average age is 13. So for every, 19-year-old, there is a 9-year-old that's actually being sold 5 times a night, right? So in my experience, I worked with sex-trafficked youth, and we try to not really conduct research with the actual youth, but with the people who work with them. But one time I was allowed to go into an organization that provides transition housing because we were studying at transition housing, and the girls were there. And I can tell you that looking into the eyes of a young girl, like I'm talking like, like that's been trafficked, changes you forever. It's like the most, I can tell you, like a gaze that doesn't see kind of thing. I don't know if you can imagine, but very painful. Like it's a gaze that doesn't see from a child, right? So the bottom line is that they suffer from mental, physical, emotional, spiritual issues, everything from their teeth down to sexually transmitted diseases, and then all of the mental and the emotional. Anyway, so it takes a long time to heal, and that's one of the things that we're trying to raise awareness, because we don't have enough beds, and because it takes so long for them to heal, that we need more beds, which means we need more money to go into transition housing, right, like that. So, and resources for anti-trafficking organizations. So the bottom line is that a lot of people kind of conflate domestic abuse with sex trafficking, and that the needs are similar, not similar. Domestic abuse, of course, is horrific and horrible, and the rest of the story that comes with it, but it's a different ball game when it comes to the healing process from somebody who has been sold so many times, right? So from my experience, and that's why anybody who is interested, you can go online at the transition guidelines, because we have all the research on all of the issues that they face. And then in the US, we try to differentiate between different needs. Like we have a lot of our native indigenous youth because of all the acculturation and historical trauma of the natives being in boarding schools. I don't know how much you know about American Indian history, but it's a very traumatic history of colonization. We're trying to now decolonize, or we call it re-indigenizing. So we're changing all of our history courses. That's a different project, but I can't tell you about that. Anyway, so in the design guidelines, you're gonna see that we differentiate what's needed for native youth because they have their own cultural needs or cultural healing processes. So pulling those out is important to be able to recognize those kind of differences as well. So it's not just the differences of experiencing trafficking, but also cultural needs in terms of healing. It complicates the picture even more, right, in terms of what's needed and next steps. We also, for anyone who is interested, Minnesota is a leader in anti-trafficking efforts. Proud to say that we actually are the first to have something called the no wrong door model, which means that any door that you hit is supposed to open up opportunities for you in anti-trafficking efforts. So I can share that resource with you because it's a whole policy on how to structure anti-trafficking efforts as well. So it needs to be approached from all these different angles, and that's the challenge of it. Mm-hmm.
To add that all changes need time, and personal traumatic experiences need time to be reframed, and also policies need time to bring results. So we have to be patient, but we have to be striving for the same goals all together, to see a real change and see it actually happening, not only wishing for it. And of course, experiences of other countries are very useful. So what we are doing now is very important. And also when art speaks is also very important, because this is another way of communicating, especially when we are dealing with situations like this, where sometimes words cannot really explain anything. So I think that what we're doing here now is very important, but we have to be patient to see change, also in our lives. So.
I also believe that educational institutions have a really big role to play, because people there are in a transition of learning, going from not learning to learning something. So it is very important that universities are involved, high schools are involved, primary education. Education in all levels is involved in this in some way that is understandable by the audiences of the age groups. So I'm very happy that we had that opportunity. I really thank you for that, for contacting us.
So thank you everyone for coming. I hope that you have a chance to look at the exhibit. One thing I may add is that a lot of people ask us, where are the people, right? This is the When Places Speak exhibit, okay? No people. And it's intentional because we want to give a platform for the places to tell their own story, because these places were not designed, we come from the College of Design. They were not designed for the purpose of people being trafficked, people being enslaved, or people being, going through all the trauma of trafficking, they were not designed for that. The places are also abused in that way. So, and don't want to be associated with that either in some cases, right? So that's why there are no people. And we see it as another lens to tell the same story, right? So, of course, there are a lot of other art efforts or other forms of communication that do include survivors' faces and survivor stories, and we bring the places stories to add another lens. We don't want to negate the other lens, right? We just need multiple lenses to tell the same story. So if you hopefully look at them through that light, then you see the people in the pictures as well. Okay? So thank you again so much for coming. And